It was one of those gray mornings when the sky couldn't decide whether to cry or hold it in. Emily pressed her old umbrella open just as the first drops began to fall. She was running late for her bus again, her sneakers soaked, her hair frizzy, just another day in her not-so-perfect world. At the corner of Maple Street, she noticed a man standing alone, drenched. His clothes were plain, his shoes muddy, and yet, there was something different about him. He wasn't scrolling his phone or rushing for cover, he just stood there, quietly watching the rain. Without thinking, Emily stepped closer. "Hey, you'll catch a cold." "Here," she said, tilting her umbrella toward him. The man looked startled, then smiled, a soft, grateful smile that warmed the cold air between them. "Thank you," he replied, his voice deep and calm. They walked side by side in silence, the sound of rain filling the pauses. Emily talked about how hard it was finding work, about how people barely looked up anymore. The stranger listened, really listened, as though her words mattered. When the bus arrived, she waved goodbye, not even asking his name. What Emily didn't know was that the man she had just shared her umbrella with wasn't just any stranger, he was Daniel Cross, the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the city. And that small act of kindness? It wasn't going to be forgotten. Daniel Cross sat in the back seat of his sleek black car, but his mind was miles away from the boardroom. The rain had stopped, yet he couldn't shake the image of the young woman holding that worn-out umbrella, smiling through the drizzle as if kindness still had a place in this indifferent world. He'd spent years surrounded by luxury, private jets, penthouses, and people who said yes because of his name, not because they cared. But that morning, someone had looked at him, really looked at him, and didn't see money, status, or power. She'd simply seen a man standing in the rain. "Sir, are we heading to the office?" his driver asked. Daniel hesitated. "No. Take me to Maple Street." He didn't even know her name, but something in him needed to find her, not out of obligation, but gratitude. Over the next few days, he visited the same bus stop, hoping for another glimpse. He even asked the nearby coffee shop owner if they knew a girl who always waited for the bus there. "Emily," the owner said finally. "She comes by most mornings. Works at the flower shop on Elm." The next morning, Daniel walked into the flower shop, this time in a simple jacket and jeans, not the suit that screamed CEO. Emily was arranging tulips behind the counter, humming softly. When she looked up and saw him, her eyes widened. You're the guy from the rain," she said, smiling. Daniel smiled back, his heart unexpectedly lighter. "Yeah," he replied. "And I owe you a thank you, for sharing your umbrella when the world was too busy to care." Months passed, and Lily became the center of Ethan's world. He learned how to braid hair, pack school lunches, and even attend awkward parent meetings. The billionaire who once avoided emotional ties now found himself waiting at the school gate every afternoon, just to see one smile. But one day, a call came that froze him again. A social worker informed him that Lily's distant relatives had been located. "They wished to take custody," she said gently. Ethan felt the ground slip beneath him. Legally, he wasn't her father. Not yet. That night, he sat beside Lily's bed, watching her sleep. Her tiny hand rested on his arm. The thought of letting her go felt unbearable. When the social worker arrived the next morning, Ethan was ready, with a signed stack of adoption papers. "I'm not her biological father," he said firmly. "But I am her dad. And I'll prove it every day of my life." The woman studied him for a long moment, then smiled. "You already have." Months later, the courtroom echoed with the sound of a gavel. "Congratulations, Mr. Cole," the judge said. "Lily is now officially your daughter." Lily turned to him, eyes shining. "Told you mommy was right," she whispered. "You came." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "And I'll never stop coming, sweetheart," he promised, holding her close. From that day on, the billionaire who once had everything finally understood what wealth truly meant. Not numbers in a bank, but the sound of a child's laughter filling his home. Because sometimes, family isn't found by blood. It's found by a single, trembling voice that says, "Daddy, come get me." Over the next few weeks, Daniel kept finding excuses to visit the little flower shop on Elm Street. Sometimes, he'd buy a single rose. Other times, he'd linger near the counter, pretending to think about bouquets just so he could talk to Emily. She never asked who he really was, never seemed to care that his watch cost more than her monthly rent. To her, he was just Daniel, a kin. The day started like any other, cloudy skies, a quiet flower shop, and Emily waiting for Daniel's usual visit. But that morning, he didn't show up. Instead, the bell over the door chimed, and a sharply dressed woman entered. "Excuse me," she said politely. "I'm looking for Mr. Daniel Cross's favorite florist." Emily blinked. "I'm sorry, who?" The woman smiled. "Daniel Cross. CEO of Cross Enterprises. He mentioned you often." Emily froze. CEO? The words hit her like cold rain. The man she'd shared her umbrella with, the man who walked with her, laughed with her, was a millionaire? Before she could respond, the woman handed her a small envelope. "He asked me to give you this." With trembling hands, Emily opened it. Inside was a simple note written in Daniel's familiar handwriting. "I never meant to hide who I am. I just wanted to know what kindness felt like, without my name attached. Thank you for showing me that it still exists. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." Her heart ached. She remembered his hesitation when she'd asked about his job, the quiet guilt in his eyes. That evening, the rain returned, heavy, relentless. Emily walked to their usual spot on Maple Street, her old umbrella in hand. And there he was. No suit, no chauffeur, just Daniel, waiting in the rain like before. "Emily," he began, his voice raw. "I should have told you the truth." Tears mixed with raindrops as she whispered, "You didn't need to be anyone else. I liked you, Daniel." The man who stood in the rain. He stepped closer, slowly taking the umbrella handle from her trembling hand. "Then let me start over," he said softly. "Hi. I'm Daniel." For a long moment, they just stood there, two people under one umbrella, rain blurring the world around them. Emily's heart still raced, torn between hurt and hope. Daniel's eyes held that same quiet sincerity she'd seen the first day, the day he'd simply been a stranger in the rain. "I thought you were just ordinary," she said with a faint smile. "I wanted to be," Daniel replied softly. "With you, I was." He explained everything, how he'd disguised himself to escape the pressure of his corporate world, how that one act of kindness from her had reminded him of something money could never buy, genuine humanity. Emily listened, her anger melting into something gentler, understanding. Because beneath the suits and titles, he was still the same man who'd shared the rain with her. Weeks passed, and the flower shop on Elm Street changed forever. A few quiet investments, anonymous, at first, helped Emily expand her tiny store into a beautiful floral boutique named Umbrella Blooms. On opening day, Daniel showed up again, not in disguise this time, but as himself. Cameras clicked, people whispered, but all Emily saw was the same man who once stood shivering beneath her old umbrella. "Guess you really did start over," she teased, adjusting a bouquet. He grinned. "No, we did." As the first customers entered, rain began to fall softly outside. Daniel opened a new umbrella and held it over her. "Looks like it's our thing," he said. Emily smiled, resting her hand on his. "Maybe rain isn't meant to make life harder," she whispered. "Maybe it's how the right people find each other." And under that shared umbrella, a love story, born from kindness, bloomed forever.